Financial Survival Network, helping you survive and thrive in the new economy. Go to CarrieLutz.com and sign up for 30 free micro trainings on financial survival.
1490 WGCH. This is Kerry Lutz, and you're listening to the Financial Survival Network, which is brought to you by Miles Franklin. They've been in business selling gold and silver for over 20 years, and I'm a customer because when you buy, they ship. For more information, find them on the web at milesfranklin.com or give them a call at 800-822-8080 and get a free quote. We're back with Ranting Andy of milesfranklin.com. Hey, Andy, not much happening in the world today. It's a Monday, right?
Well, when I finish my rant at 11 a.m., there's a lot happening. This was an historic weekend in so many different ways. And ask away, what do we want to talk about?
Well, we see the Europe implosion. It's over now because they bailed out the Spanish banks, right?
I mean, usually when you have these kind of bailouts, like in Greece, they commiserate over it for weeks and months, and it's just a big torture. And it's gotten to the point where they don't even bother anymore. They basically said, look, the Greek thing didn't work. Let's just say that we're bailing out Spain. Well, we won't even tell anyone beforehand. We won't even give details. And then when we do give details, people realize that there was no bailout. Look, I'm going to tell people right now, Spain has not been bailed out. I don't care what the headlines say. The mechanism supposedly is this ESM, the European Stability Mechanism, which has not yet been ratified by Germany, the country that is supposed to be paying all the money. It would be printed money in the first place. And unlike some of these other bailouts, it's a loan. They're not bailing out anything. They're going to increase their debt by 100 billion euros. While they're still holding these horrible, horrible real estate assets that are plunging in value.
Yeah, so what's the point of this? They're just managing perceptions? Does it put it off a couple of days? How does this deal with the ultimate day of reckoning? What is their goal here? Is it just to fool the people into thinking everything's okay? Because I don't think anybody believes that at this point, do they?
Well, the whole idea all along has been to kick the can down the road, starting, in 2008 when the whole Ponzi scheme started to blow up on them. I started talking about last fall in Global Meltdown 2, how it really seemed like the European politicians and all these organizations, IMF and EU and this and that, how they just didn't seem to be coordinating and have any real clue of what they were doing. And this just takes the cake because if you want to kick the can down the road and pretend you're bailing people out and all's well, you got to do it logically. You got to do it with money that exists from organizations that exist. And when I wrote this weekend before this morning's trading I said, look, we've been in Global Meltdown 3. It just started a few weeks ago. And this is going to be the one where the money printing doesn't work anymore. And sure enough, this is what happened. They opened the markets up strong. Italy was up 3% and Greece was up 3% and Spain. And here we are, we're not even halfway through the American trading day. Italy ended down 3%. Spain ended down 1%. Greece has barely changed, and all of the other European markets are down. And it's on top of that, the Dow is down 30-something points, and they've been attacking all morning with gold up. This is a catastrophic failure for the powers that be. I think this was we were talking about the most botched, Fed meetings and the most botched of economic data. Everything that they're doing now just rings of stupidity. And I just cannot believe what they attempted with the Spain thing out of the blue. And the markets are telling you that they don't believe it. Not just the stock markets. Look at the Spanish and Italian CDS prices, and their yields have exploded today. This is a colossal failure, and it puts us that much closer to the end game.
So it's a case of Humpty Dumpty, and it's a case just when you have an alcoholic or you have a junkie, and eventually, no matter how much of their drug you give them, it doesn't do any good. And the markets have been hyped up on all sorts of fake credit, fake money, and now it's all crumbling, and it doesn't matter how many injections. It doesn't matter if they give them intravenous injections of dollars. They're toast, right?
Yeah, and actually I was getting confused. I kept saying botched. I was trying to think of what I was thinking of. I was referring to the botched IPO of Facebook, which I think is the most representative, perfectly representative event of what we're seeing right now. I mean, when you see Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, whose business for the past 100 years has been to do IPOs, blowing something that bad, it just shows you the incompetence, the gross incompetence, the gross negligence that's going on in the higher offices of government and Wall Street. And I am just beyond belief befuddled by how horribly this whole Spanish thing was handled this weekend. And it gets to the point where, well, now Ireland wants a bailout. And of course, Italy has to get a bailout. Italy is much bigger than Spain. It's 50% bigger than Spain.
Sure.
So what are they going to do now? They're just going to come out with a bunch of buffoons. I never even heard of the Spanish finance minister until Saturday, whatever his name is, San Jafritos or whatever. I mean, they're just throwing out names and acronyms and, oh yeah, 100 billion euros. From where? There is no 100 billion euros. It's all a scam. And the markets have figured out in a matter of hours.
It's really distressing, and they're just playing us for fools. Yeah, that whole thing, the value guys who I work with, they called Facebook faceplant because it turned into
bird, face plant, face everything.
Yeah, it just turned into this ridiculous failure. And what was the need to do it now? Or, hey, sell it at 25 or 30 a share, but it was everybody's last big hurrah, last cash in, last golden handshake before whatever's going to happen really happens. And then IPOs, who cares?
It's almost like the top. Look, again, Morgan Stanley and JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, they still have their bankers there. I mean, these are the same guys that did deals for the past 20, 30 years. And I honestly think that they sat in boardrooms and said, let's get this thing really, really hot, because if people think that this is a great deal, they'll feel strongly about the economy and want to buy other things. That's not how business works. You don't price an IPO at 100 times earnings for anything. And nothing is ever, even the IPOs in the internet age, they didn't have earnings back then. There's never been IPOs priced at 100 times earnings. And they're doing it at a time where the whole freaking world is collapsing. It's just beyond belief, the stupidity. And again, it's one thing when if the markets would be soaring now and they buy themselves 3 or 6 months, but everyone's laughing at them right now. And now they have to think of their next move, because you look up tomorrow and the Italian banks are going to need money.
Yeah, they wake up every morning and they think, how can we fool them today? How can we put one over on you? How can we pull the wool over your eyes so you go to work and you believe that everything's fine, the system's working the way it's intended to, and you're going to be okay? And we all know, God, you and I have been talking about it for months now, Andy. It's not what's happening. It's a mass attempted illusion. Mass hypnosis to try to get you to believe the opposite of reality, and nothing's changing that. I mean, it's the same thing as GLD and the so-called precious metals ETFs, right? Same illusion.
Oh, perfect segue, Kerry, per our pre-conversation.
I get it every now and then, right, Andy? You know that I am in the business. But yeah, GLD. And tell us about that bar that the guy from, was it CNBC, held up a bar and said, you see, they really do have gold in the ETF. It's really here.
Yeah, well, sometimes fate works in our favor, because our call was delayed for 10 minutes today, which was just long enough for me to receive this email from a friend of mine with a truly shocking story. Not shocking in that based on our beliefs, because we all know GLD is a fraud, but the fact that we're talking about gross incompetence and negligence in trying to fool us. And what I'm about to tell you is it just proves that there are literally morons on the top. And that's why that, ultimately they must lose. Okay, so GLD is supposed to own all this gold. Based on its prospectus, we all know they don't. Okay, there's just no way. They don't have to be audited. Look who are the people that are running this thing. It's just incredible. So they get CNBC, which is the cheerleader of the powers that be. They put Bob Pisani, who's one of their talking heads, into a car in London and put a blindfold on him and say, we're going to take you to our vault, the GLD vault. And this is about a year ago, maybe 6 months.
I remember right. It well.
Okay, so goes in. They take his blindfold off, and he's in a room full of gold. They don't tell us where it is, as if that matters. I mean, it's a room full of gold. It could be the Bank of England. It could be anything. It doesn't matter. And he picks up a bar and says, "Look, here's an actual bar." And of course, they were too dumb to tell him, hold the bar the other way, because the serial number showed. And on TV, people saw the serial number, and they looked and saw, what do you know? That bar is not in GLD's registered bar list. So there's already some suspicion. Well, better yet, Ned Naylor Leland, who's one of the best gold analysts in the world. I met him last year in London. He works for Chevrier Management in London. He's a very well-respected precious metals analyst.
Sure.
He had another ETF, another gold ETF, come into his office to try to pitch him. And he said, he basically said, I'm not a big fan of ETFs like GLD, and these are the reasons why. In fact, look at this segment on that CNBC did last year. Take a look at it. And they took a look at it and they said, you know what? That's our bar. So the point is, this EFT Securities or whatever that runs this other gold ETF is saying that the GLD got busted, that it's their bar. So either they didn't own it in the first place, or they've swapped it out, which is, why you should not own, the GLD in the first place. And I think this is an enormous, enormous story, which in time will help the discount on GLD to net asset value go from 3% currently to 30% to 50% at some point.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this is fractional reserve metals banking, if you will, at its worst, because the wizard has been revealed behind the curtain, and he has no golden underwear. He's got no clothes, the emperor. This just proves it.
And the thing, again, the overarching point, and it started last fall when you started to see the different factions of Europe and the different prime ministers and finance ministers saying contradictory things. And, I was talking to a friend yesterday who works for a public company. And I said, it would be like if you put out a press release saying, we're introducing our new product, but you hadn't yet asked your engineers if it worked. And that's what I think this press release was last night. The same thing with the Greek bailouts. If you remember last fall, it was in October. Oh, it's a done bailout. But the thing is, there was no bailout. They just put out press releases. And the same with this. They have no idea what they're talking about. And, in fact, what they should have done if they're going to do this was wait until the stocks fall again. They've had a reprieve this week. If you're going to do emergency measures, at least wait until the markets are falling again. They just have no idea what they're doing. And I think that ultimately today's Spanish bailout, if you call it that, is going to be a major, major inflection point in the power that be losing the battle of the financial markets.
Yeah, you know what it's like? It's like the guy is having heart failure, but his heart hasn't stopped yet. And they're giving him the defibrillator, jolting him back to life, but he's not dead quite. And it does more harm than good. And I think that's what you're going to see here, because in the final analysis, there's only the reality that we have to deal with. And you can have honestly differing viewpoints, but you can't create a whole different reality just with different window dressing, just because you have a place that's falling apart, so you put a coat of paint on it, and you say, look, I have a brand new house, never been lived in. That's what they're doing, and it can't work, because as dumb as some observers might be, eventually that house is going to collapse. People are going to get trapped in it, and the money is going to be gone, and that's what we're looking at here. The financial system will collapse. All of this wealth will dissolve into thin air, and then you're going to be left with the real stuff, which hopefully you've picked up, which hopefully you've been buying from Miles Franklin and others, and you've been acquiring it on these obvious raids and downtrends in the metals, right? There is nothing else here.
Yeah, when it comes to money, people are going to be very surprised at how soon it's going to be where people stop quoting their net worth in dollars. If you go to a place like India, they've never quoted their net worth in rupees. And frankly, if anyone's looked at what the rupee has done, it's hitting a new all-time low today, you can see why.
And the ruble and all the others, right?
Yeah, and why anyone even looks at the dollar. I mean, I can't emphasize enough. I've been talking for 10 years about the dollar index. All that is the exchange rate between the dying dollar and the dying euro. It couldn't be more meaningless. Every one of these currencies is going down against real items of value, whether it be gold or food or energy, and it'll keep going like that until they have to start over with a new currency.
Hey, it's like two swimmers trapped in the Atlantic and pulled out to sea by a tide that they can't fight, and they're starting to drown, and they're giving each other mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. And you know how it's going to end up. They're still going to drown. There is no other way.
Yeah, except in this case, they're actually trying to grab onto each other and push the other one down. But either way, whether they try to save each other or not, they're both going to die. So
yeah, that's it. The final analysis, how money dies. This is how it's done. And there's no way out of this except to take out your insurance policy now. Like people always say to me, well, where's the price of gold going? And honestly, Andy, if I wasn't in this business, if people didn't expect me to know, I probably wouldn't be watching it very much at this particular point, and I wouldn't know from minute to minute or day to day what it was because it's irrelevant to me. It makes no difference. It's the fact that you have it. And I just want to pass off an anecdote to you real quick. I was at Blog World, this kind of part of the new media, part of the old media together. And there's a bunch of, I'd say 20 plus to 30 plus year old people sitting at a table. And I just happened to have a Silver Eagle that I'd gotten from Miles Franklin a while back, because I just carry one on me because people ask me what I do and I show it to them. And I said, I pass it around and said, how much will you guys give me for this? And, how much you think it's worth? And most of them thought it was worth $1. Okay. One guy said, well, maybe it's 50. Another one said 100. The point being, these are pretty smart people. They're well educated and they're out there actually doing stuff, not sitting around eating and wishing they had a job like a lot of recent college grads. And Andy, not one of them had a clue what it was worth. And none of them were even concerned enough to go Google it, to check it out. And I said, guys, you listen to me right now. I'm 54, not the voice of total experience here, because most of the people who are smarter than me are dead now. But you better look at that and understand that is going to be real money, and you're going to need to have these. So you better start getting them now rather than when you have to have them. And of course, you know the response and the result. I didn't get through, but a couple of them were scratching their heads with a little bit of inquisitiveness and wondering whether the old guy, because I'm 54 and they're 20 something, the old guy in the corner there might actually know what he's talking. But God, there's a wake up call coming, Andy. And we've been trying to sound it for years now. And these people are intelligent people, Andy, and they don't get it.
Well, look, we are winding up the longest, and it's 40 years, the longest experiment in money printing, market manipulation, and propaganda in the history of mankind. And I cannot put that more lightly. It literally is a 40-year experience of failure and brainwashing. Yeah. And, when things are that big, they have to fall big. And it really is amazing to see how few people understand the simplest concepts, mostly because they don't want to understand. They've been taught to believe otherwise, and they don't even listen. And it really is shocking. But, that's history. Mankind, I write so much about nature versus nurture and about the intelligence of mankind as individuals, but not as a group. And, everything is in play watching this whole thing fall apart.
Hey, that old saying, the one thing we learn from history is that we never learn from history. And I don't know who said that. Do you know who said it? I'm going to have to
I believe it was Carrie Lutz, I believe, said it.
There's a lot of people. I've read it. I didn't come up with it on my own. It's probably said a long time ago, but it's downright distressing because, I look back to my parents' younger years, which was the Great Depression, and the impact it had on their families and all of my friends' families. And now it never happened. they're so oblivious to it. And, you know, if we've done anything and we've woken up a few people, I know I've woken up some, and I know you have, not anywhere near the number, but we've done it. We've helped them somewhat. But in the final analysis, the ultimate wake-up call isn't going to have anything to do with us. The ultimate wake-up call is when the system goes, and then they really have to deal with it. And, man, then it's hallelujah time.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of hallelujah time, we got to get going. But milesfranklin.com, I'm a customer there. They ship promptly when you buy it, and that's why I keep going back. All right, Andy.
We'll talk to you soon. Should be a crazy week.
Oh, yeah. It's starting out, man. What's gold at now before we leave?
Gold's up 3 and change, and the Dow's down 60. So this is a desperate 2 hours coming up for the cartel, PPT, and everyone else in charge of destroying the world.
And it's your time to be buying it. So, all right, and we'll talk to you again next week.
Great. Bye-bye.